Podcast of Poseidon is a spoiler-heavy podcast.
That's an understatement.
We're going to discuss not just the events of this book, but the Rhineverse as a whole, and really anything that we feel is relevant. You can find full spoiler warnings in the show notes.
And I guess maybe...
Wait, did I just suggest that sleep is a time distortion?
Yeah.
Oh no, my life is in shambles. Hello, mortals, monsters, and myth lovers alike. You're listening to Podcast of Poseidon, where we explore how ancient myths become modern pop culture by reading Rick Riordan's, Percy Jackson, and the Olympians. This is Chapter 34, The Lotus Eaters. I'm your co-host, on loan from the Hunters of Artemis, Darien Smartt. Joining me is my co-host and brother, hailing from the island of Jerba, DJ.
How's everybody doing today? The island of Jerba is not a bad, it's not a bad place, but there's this weird group of people over there just, I guess, living their best life? I don't know. It's kind of strange in my opinion.
All right. Well, do they have good snacks?
Eat this flower. It looks a little strange. Looks like a lotus, but, you know.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is we should swing by the camp store to get our own snacks.
Yes.
All right, DJ, the Lotus Eaters.
That it is.
What do you remember about the Lotus Eaters from the Percy Jackson books?
Well, it wasn't really a group of people. It was more of a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And Percy, Annabeth, and Grover in the first book ended up at the hotel, wasting, quote unquote, it felt like an hour. Well, maybe not quote, it felt like, but they were there for like an hour or so.
A couple hours, yeah.
And then they left. It was 5 days later.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little crazy. And then in Titan's Curse, it's revealed that Bianca and Nico spent a long time in the Lotus Hotel.
Decades.
Yeah, I think it's like 70 years or something like that that it came out.
Yeah, basically. Yes, that is why, dear listeners, you may be wondering, why the heck didn't they cover the Lotus Eaters when the Lotus Casino first showed up in the books? Well, because we didn't forget. DJ and I talked about it, and we decided...
I forgot.
We didn't forget. We did talk about it and decided to wait until Titan's Curse because I feel like that is when it becomes the most plot relevant.
Yeah. When it's actually used as a tool for the gods.
Yes. Not that it's not plot relevant. We have it's a very first example of one of Rick Riordan's favorite writing tropes. I've created a timeline for my characters to follow. How do I suddenly cut that in half to really raise the stakes? We see this often. In every book, I think, except for maybe Titan's Curse.
I think so.
Yeah.
The Titan's Curse, they just keep getting sidetracked.
They keep saying, it's different, but...
It's an entirely different thing.
The stakes are already pretty high.
Yeah.
So, yeah, DJ, top of your head, do you know anything about the Lotus Eaters in mythology?
They eat lotuses.
Well, kinda.
That's about it. That is all I know.
So the Lotus Eaters appear exactly once.
Yep.
In mythology, they are not like beasts or monsters or gods that appear last. They do appear a singular time.
Okay.
It is the Odyssey, so it's a pretty big time. But even in the Odyssey, you have like Scylla and Charybdis. They showed up in Jason the Argonauts beforehand, and like Calypso's all over, like Circe's like everywhere.
Yeah.
So the Lotus Eaters are interesting in that they do only appear here. And like, I'm just going to read a passage, if you will indulge me.
Yep.
This is not from Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey, because...
Couldn't find it.
My roommate's asleep, but I can't go to her room to get it. So, this is from the internet. And gang, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I do not care for the language used in this particular translation. It's clearly trying to be high English, and we just got listen to an Odyssey episode. You know how we feel. I was driven thence by foul winds for a space of 9 days upon the sea. But on the 10th day we reached the land of the Lotus Eaters, who lived on a food that comes from a kind of flower. Here we landed to take in fresh water, and our crews got their midday meal on the shore near the ships. When they had eaten and drunk, I sent 2 of my company to see what manner of men the people of the place might be, and they had a 3rd man under them. They started at once, and went among the Lotus Eaters, who did them no hurt, but gave them to eat of the lotus, which was so delicious that those who ate of it left off caring about home, and did not even want to go back and say what had happened to them, but were for staying and munching lotus with the Lotus Eaters without thinking further of their return. Nevertheless, though they wept bitterly, I forced them back on the ships, and made them fast under the benches. Then I told the rest to get on board at once, lest any of them should taste of the lotus and leave off wanting to get home. So they took their places and smote the grey sea with their oars. And that's it. That's the Lotus Eaters.
That's
Start to
not a
finish.
lot.
Not a lot. No, it's pretty wild. Pretty wild. Probably could have been a bonus episode, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, maybe.
But here we are. We promised. I actually expected there to be way more when we started researching this. I thought this feels so big and important.
But there's a lot of things that might feel so big and important in Rick Riordan's writings.
Exactly.
That are just not.
And I mean, because I think that stands to like a claim of like the way he like wrote this. The Lotus Casino, even in the books, it only appears like twice, but it's so important for like the plot device it serves. And like from a writing, like a storytelling stance, I'm really impressed by what he did with the Lotus Casino and introducing like this weird time distortion where they think they're only there for a couple of hours and then they step out and it's been 5 days.
Yeah.
Like utilizing that late. I don't know whether he intended to do this from the get-go or not. I would imagine so, because this guy definitely was like, I want to have Hades have kids, but Hades is not going to break his oath.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me. Having it be able to come back, and this is how we introduce these characters later, and where have they been, and how are they still like the right age to be part of this adventure? They've been in the Lotus Casino. They were like spirited off and then hid away there for ages. And I think Percy knows, but we don't get it like absolutely confirmed until like the 5th book.
Is it the 5th book?
I think we get like the flashback of what happens to the Oracle.
Oh, true.
So that's when we get it like confirmed that this is what happens to the DiAngelos. But yeah, I think it's really cool. But also, much like in the Lotus Eaters, when Percy, Annabeth, and Grover are there in the hotel, they start to forget what they're doing. Like, it's full of video games, and it's like this kid paradise, and they have like a comfortable room and a card that just every swipe works on everything.
Yeah, it's an unlimited cash card because we see Annabeth use it on a taxi later.
That's so good. That's another. I love the plot.
It literally is like, okay, let's swipe the card, and it's like max, like whatever.
Whatever he sees.
Whatever he sees.
He calls her he calls her your highness, the taxi driver. And it just speeds through the fucking like desert to get them to LA. It's really good.
And then they give him the card.
Sure, dude. What are they going to use for it? They don't need it after that. They might have become back.
They might.
I mean, yeah.
That is an unlimited card that fucking taxi driver's like, oh yeah, absolutely.
Good for him. Good for him. Honestly, what I hope.
Like I could do so much with this card.
I'm sure he did.
I'm sure it was like an Amex Black essentially, but magic.
Yeah. I want to talk about how after because they perceived them as they were there, like Percy, Annabeth, and Grover for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And already like Annabeth gets caught up in like playing this like literal world building like architecture game. She starts to forget. Grover's playing like a reverse hunting game where it's the deer hunting the hunters. It's like
fun fact, that game is called Deer Avenger, and it is fucking amazing.
I was gonna say it's like that setting on Duck Hunt. I'm pretty sure there's a setting on Duck Hunt you can play as the duck, or maybe the dog. I think I might be thinking of the dog. I can't remember,
but yeah, there is an actual game that is your playing as a Deer Avenger. Like, it's great. Yeah. I haven't played it in so long.
No, and they get so wrapped up that like Grover doesn't even recognize Percy for a second when he hits him up again, and Percy only started to realize something was wrong because he's like playing some game with a kid, and the kid's like, groovy man, like he's like,
what year is it? It's the 70s.
And Percy's like, fuck, nope, hold up, because Percy's like,
something wrong here.
Yeah, because people have been out to get this kid his whole life. Like, he is caught head on a swivel. Yeah. Even it's like, this is too good. Even when it's starting to, like, the magic's getting to him, he doesn't really want to leave. He's forgetting the quest and his friends.
Yeah, this is too good.
He's still got that little anxiety part of his brain where he's like, someone is always out to get me, and it's not my fault. Something is wrong here. He gets his friends, he gets them out. I just want to speak to what it was like for the DiAngelos to be in there for so long and to have not forgotten each other while they were in there. Like, people give Bianca a lot of crap for joining the Hunters and abandoning Nico.
Which I will fight against.
We'll fight. Anyway. We stand.
We love Bianca.
We love Bianca. She was doing what was best for her. You've got to respect. She had to be Nico's, like, guardian and mom, basically, fighting against the magic of the Lotus Casino for decades. Like, because that's the only reason these kids stayed together.
But like, what felt like for, what was it, like a month?
I think they thought they were there for a month or so. right? But it was decades. But even still, like, that magic almost tore Percy, Annabeth, and Grover apart on their life-saving quest.
Yeah.
After a couple of hours for them, like, decades under there, like, I may be projecting a lot, and I know I am, I'll admit, my girl Bianca, but just, like, she had to stay with Nico. Even in this place that was supposed to be paradise, like, sure, I'm sure there's things she would want to have gone off and done, but she needed to look after Nico, and she did that for ages. So when there's like, oh, she just abandoned her brother, like, after 70 years of looking after him and constantly fighting against the magic of this hotel that made her want to forget her troubles, she refused to forget her responsibility to her brother.
Yeah, and that is awesome.
And she was allowed to not have to be responsible when she saw that there was going to be a place for him to be able to thrive, and she was allowed to go to a place where she would be able to thrive.
Yeah.
So, Bianca DiAngelo, A+.
100%.
All the time. All the time.
Every day.
So which begs the question, if there's not really that much to talk about the Lotus Eaters, DJ, what are we doing here?
I'm talking about time.
We're talking about time. Because, you know, I love a good time distortion plot.
It's fucking great.
It is great. So there's trying to figure out how to describe the Lotus Eaters in the context of the plot and of the Percy Jackson one. And there is a common trope called, like, the Lotus Eater machine that essentially creates a false paradise for the subject and tries to lead the hero off the quest, or you don't realize you're in danger, or you know, a fake dream.
There are 2 games off the top of the dome that have that specific trope.
Please tell us.
The most recent one that I played was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ooh.
If you guys haven't played it, it's fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
The plot of that game is obviously you're the Guardians, and you're just starting off as your heroes for hire.
Yeah.
The big quest that they become the Guardians of the Galaxy by, you know, saving the galaxy is there is this creature that was made... I guess that's spoilers. There's a creature out there... I was about to spoil it. There's a creature out there that gets released from the Soul Stone.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and it starts messing with people's minds and giving them what they call the promise. The promise of something that they had lost returned, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And we get to see it very briefly for the heroes, and obviously Peter Quill. And as you can imagine, he wants his mom.
Yeah.
It was his mom, and it was a fucking surreal experience that thing was. And then later we it's really cool because we get to see like all these things, and it's like Gamora as well as Drax. At least those 2 are like the 2 that we get to see. But like it spreads throughout the fucking galaxy. Even the world mind, you know, Nova Corps is like, we don't know what the fuck this thing is. No. We are just dipping, and it's cool because you get like. I don't know if these are scripted sequences that I got, right? Okay. Or if they happen because you get dialogue options that you get to choose how something's about to go down. Yeah. I managed to convince the world mind that maybe, or like give it extra information to where it came back and helped me in the end. Hey. And the sequence that it came back and helped me, no idea if it's scripted or not, but it's like when it left after the thing, it's like you have planted a seed of doubt in the world mind. And then when it came back, it's like you convinced the world mind to come help you in your endeavor. Like, that's fucking sick!
I love that.
I love it. It's great. But yeah, so that happened. And then the other game is Far Cry 5. Okay. Fucking great game. Both of these are cults, which... Whatever. The fact that you brought this up is the simple fact that it's not even like I'm relating it to the fact that I think the Lotus Eaters are a cult, which they are.
I will. Okay, finish. Let's finish the Lotus Eating machine. We'll talk. There's a lot of tropes here we're gonna dig into.
Yeah. In Far Cry 5, it actually comes from a plant that is grown throughout a region of this map. That is. If somebody like inhales like the vapors of the plant when it's burned or whatever the fuck they do with it, they go into a paradise in their minds, and just like it's all happy and go lucky, and that's how they turn a lot of people and get a lot of people to essentially do slave labor. You know, and it's a good time, and those sequences are also pretty surreal, especially the boss fight surrounding the chick that was leading that area of the map, because it like. She's standing in the middle and using magic powers to fight against you. Meanwhile, you're this FBI fucking rookie who had to come here and, like, it was supposed to be a simple arrest. Oh, no. And the cold people went crazy when you were trying to get Joseph.
Damn it. Not what I signed up for.
Essentially. It was great, though. And those are the 2 off the top that I can think of that at least relate to the false promise.
Yeah, that's a common one. I think you'll find that a lot. I mean, this one's like all over the place. The one that I thought of that's something that I like is from the City of Heavenly Fire, the Last Mortal Instruments books. And basically you have the heroes and they fall into like a demon on purpose. They go to a demon world. They're trying to like rescue some people and stop this like the big bad guy and all of his shit. I won't get into it here. But as they fall into the demon world, they basically get like their dream of like their perfect reality essentially. Yeah. And the one girl, she's like, oh, her biological father, who is like the first half of the series, he was the villain. He did some really horrible things. In her dream, he was actually a hero. He stopped the villain. He died doing so, but now her mom is married to this guy that she views as her like father figure. So obviously she wants them to be together. And her brother is there. Her brother, who when he was a baby, her father corrupted and turned him into basically a monster. He is a monster. Mm-hmm. She gets to see him, and he is a person, and he loves her, and he's teasing her about like, oh, are you gonna go hang out with like Jace Herondale, you know, your boyfriend? And it's like her life is what it should have been if her father wasn't a fucking monster. Yeah. And then you have this other character who it's like her whole family is back together. Her parents are getting divorced. It's like really difficult. Her on and off boyfriend like she doesn't know where she stands with him. And he's like a vampire, and it's really difficult for her. But like all her family's there, and they're celebrating like, oh, she's finished the war. She ended the war. She's a hero. She's got this huge accomplishment. Hooray! And she turns around and she sees her little brother who died in the first half of the series, who was murdered by the other character's brother, who is a monster. Yeah. And so she sees her brother, and she's like, oh my gosh, Max, you're here. And she's like, but why aren't you any older? And we don't see Jace's. It was kind of weird. But then we see, my favorite one was Alec, who he sees all his family there, all of his friends. They're also celebrating him. And his currently at that moment ex-boyfriend, Magnus Bane, who they broke up because the whole thing, very dramatic. He's back there and he's like, oh yeah, I love you, I forgive you, we're great, your family's okay with you being gay and being with me, and it's wonderful, and we're gonna get married, and it's all these things he's ever wanted, but he's like, this, and Alex, the one looks around, he's like, this isn't real. Yeah. Like, but Magnus actually looks at him, he's like, you know this isn't real, right? Like, you're not buying this, right? But it's Alec in his head because he knows this is bullshit. Yeah. Magnus isn't really telling him this, but he knows, he trusts I'm projecting. This is my favorite shit. Magnus is such like this stable force in his life and this person that he sees as like guidance that of course when his brain is like, this isn't real, it would come out as Magnus being like, you know this is bullshit. Yeah. And it's all this stuff. He's like, what the fuck is happening? And as soon as he's realizing, what were we doing? We were falling. We were going to derail. Something's wrong. I'm trying to save you because Magnus has been kidnapped. He's like, I'm trying to save you. And he's able to break himself out of it and breaks all of them out of it. Yeah. And it's really cool because I think as a plot device, when you have that kind of Lotus Eater machine, I feel like it's best done when it is able to show the audience something true about the character, something they want so badly. You get to know their hopes and their fears and their vulnerabilities and all of these things that you wouldn't usually get to see or things you know. And it's just like, it's good. I don't think that is what the Lotus Casino is, no, or even what the Lotus Eaters are.
Like, it's not. It's the Lotus Eaters, at least the Lotus trope that you said. Mm-hmm. It seems like the trope itself like grants them peace of mind and false paradise. Yes. So a lot of times when somebody thinks false paradise, it's everything that they want to go right in their life. Yeah. Goes right. Yeah. Right. And so then that's what happens. Yeah. And so, like, breaking people out of that false paradise, always fun. It's always a fun thing for people to go through.
It's so always great. Everyone, there's no trauma when you're done. Everyone's in a cool place.
And I'm going to bring it back real quick to Guardians of the Galaxy. Please. Because the way that they got out of their promise, at least the heroes, is that they had to kill what the promise was giving. No! So, I had to pull the trigger on Peter Quill's mom. That was a rough fucking scene to do. That was so super upsetting. Sad. And I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers because I do want to talk about it because I really like this game. I thought it would, like, granted, I think the downside to it is it was the most movie-like game I've played. Mm-hmm. In the sense that, like, I was putting my controller down a lot.
Kingdom Hearts 3, yeah.
Yeah, so I was putting my controller down a lot and just watching. Mm-hmm. But the gameplay was so good that I was fine with it, and so was the story, right? Nice. Gamora, like, her, like, thing was that in the past she had to kill her sister. Right? This is the timeline it's following. Is this timeline where Gamora has to kill, I don't remember her name.
Nebula?
Nebula. She has to kill Nebula.
No!
Yeah, she has to kill Nebula. And so for her, when she came out of it, she was fucking like distraught and pissed. And she's like, yeah, I knew it was a lie because I saw my sister and I'm the one who had to fucking kill her. I knew it was a lie. And then the other one we get to see was Drax.
Mm-hmm.
Drax actually gave into the promise later on in the game. This is the spoiler territory.
Okay.
He gave into the promise, and so we had to fight against Drax the Immortal. That in this timeline, he's the one who killed Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody knows him as that, as Drax the Destroyer. He killed Thanos. That's the fucking thing. And we eventually get into his mind because Mantis shows up. Mantis is way fucking better in this game than in the movies. Mm-hmm. Don't get me started on Mantis.
Okay.
Love Mantis. And but yeah, Mantis shows up, and then we find Adam Warlock.
Adam Warlock.
He shows up. We get him, and he helps us with Drax. But for Drax, it's his family.
Yeah.
It's his daughter and his wife. And that was a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
Because it really was like, and this was a scene where I got dialogue options.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know if I can really fuck this up or not. I have no idea how much real freedom I had in that game. Maybe it's just the illusion of choice, right? No matter what,
Like
everything that happened, everything that I did was just going to happen no matter what. Mm-hmm. I have no idea. But I'm like, fuck Drax. And Drax, to break him out of it, obviously, has to kill his family finally bury it, right? Mm-hmm. To move past it. And it was rough because he goes in and he hugs his family, and then you hear fucking stab, and his swords are through his wife and daughter. I'm like, oh fuck.
No. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Drax. Love Drax in that game too.
Yeah,
oh my god. I will have to say, as much as I enjoyed the movies, I think the game characters are way fucking better.
Fascinating. I would like to play this one. I definitely want to get into more games recently, so I have more games to talk about. Speaking of games, Kingdom Hearts 2 does this to Roxas.
Yeah.
They put Roxas in this wild... Oh, no, I can't.
Roxas, I didn't know anything about Roxas when I started Kingdom Hearts 2, and it still broke my heart when Sora was crying at the start of the game. I'm like, why is Sora crying? And even he doesn't know, but it's like, no, we all know it's fucking Roxas. Trapped in his body, sad that his friends don't remember him.
Just literally, and his perfect paradise was a normal teenage life because he was never gonna get that and never had that because he's a nobody.
Yeah.
I can't even.
It was heartbreaking.
It's so good. It's so good. But I would say the Lotus Casino, at least in this one, doesn't really operate under that circumstances because it's, as we said, the big thing, and the reason why we saved it for the third book is to talk about its function as a kind of a time paradox, a time distortion thing.
Yeah. Because
that's really cool. And DJ, I have had the hardest fucking time figuring out.
I know, you were telling me about it.
How to describe this thing where it's like, okay, you're in a thing, but it's longer on the outside and it's harder to figure out what does it mean. So we're just going to talk about time shit. Hey, I forgot to talk about any of the mythology surrounding the Lotus Eaters.
Well, we did.
Yes, we talked about well, you mentioned, they eat flowers. The one thing I learned in my research, because there's not a lot. There's a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
They have no idea what the flower would be. The term lotus was used to describe a bunch of different plants. So if anybody says it was definitely this plant, they're full of bullshit. No one actually knows what the Lotus Eater plant was supposed to have been.
They, at least that one, it said fruit from a flower.
Some sort of, some
sort of fruit from a flower. But that is such a broad range. We got cherries, we got peaches, we got apples. Every fruit comes from a fucking flower.
Yeah, something. I mean,
not every fruit, but
a lot of them.
Most berries.
But that was the one thing I thought was interesting is that it's, you Lotus Eaters, they eat a lotus plant. That's not necessarily true. The word that we translate for lotus was used for a bunch of different stuff. So we have no idea. I just wanted to mention that because I like to send our listeners off with an interesting fact for the day.
Woo.
So time bubbles, time distortion, time loops, so much. I think we have to narrow it down. No time loops.
No time loops? Yeah, that's fair.
It's not a time loop.
We could talk about time loops all fucking day.
I know. I mean, we could talk about the 11th hour from the Adventure Zone, and it's like...
Majora's Mask. I still need to play Outer Wilds, because that game was so fucking good.
There's that one episode from their first season of Star Trek Discovery. Great fucking time loop episode.
There's so many time loops. Groundhog's Day. Amazing fucking movie.
So, so good. Time loops are super fun. It's not a time loop, though.
No, it's... the other one that I can think is... If you haven't gone to our Patreon and checked out our bonus episodes, you absolutely should. Because we talked about the Twisted Tales And Hercules' Twisted Tale, Go the Distance, actually features this specific time distortion.
Mm-hmm.
Where when Hades takes Meg, has her fall through a thing for, a couple of days maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a couple of days. And then she thinks that her husband just fucking up and left her after a couple of days.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's been fucking like 2 years, maybe even more. Because the husband is like pregnant with a kid. Or not the husband, but
it's his new wife.
His new wife.
Who he met in grief counseling.
Yeah. Because, she also lost her husband, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. Hey, great story. We had a lot of fun talking about it. So please go check it out on our Patreon. Yeah,
we got a lot of really cool bonus.
But they did that to Meg.
They did that to Meg. Ugh, yeah,
Poor
that's
Meg.
a big one. It's funny because it's very easy, I think, to find the inverse of this.
Oh, 100%.
A lot of time passes, and then you leave, and a very little time has actually passed.
Because it's an easy way to kind of seal up plot holes.
Yes, I think it's called like the Narnia time machine.
Uh-huh.
So big shout out, Chronicles of Narnia obviously does this thing all over the place. As soon as you're through the wardrobe or the mirror,
you're just right back to the moment you enter the
basically,
wardrobe.
and not even your physical form is like completely reverted back. Like this is some crazy ass magic stuff we've got going on. Yeah. It's very good. You see this in like, let me get my list.
Trying to think too. Maybe I know something.
There's tons. I mean, Doctor Who has like this all up and down. It is the like major plot point for the Doctor. I think is the one that experiences this the most because the time traveler is literally skipping through time. So it's not even just like.
But they're also going back in time.
They go back in time, but the one I think of, not to say this is the first one or the biggest one, but in the 11th hour, the very first 11th Doctor episode, he crash lands into this girl, Amelia Pond. And
that
fish
would
fingers
be
and
the
custard.
biggest.
Yep. And then he's like, "Oh, the TARDIS needs. I need it." It's like when you jump your car, you got to drive it for a little bit. He's got to go take the TARDIS around the block real quick. He'll be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. He'll be back in 5 minutes, and then he comes back. It's the next day. He's like, "Ah, damn it! I overshot it, but I just realized what's wrong. There's something wrong. Amelia has to get out of the house." It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years, 15 years. It's been so long, and it's like huge, and then it happens again, but this time it's been 2 years. So Amy Pond, the girl who waited long enough. It's really good. Like
Amy Pond,
the 11th Doctor is my favorite.
Every time somebody talks about, David Tennant was great, the Doctor after Matt was great, and I have not heard great things about the newest Doctor.
I think the writing sounds like it's not very good. I think we see this in Labyrinth. It happens actually twice in the movie The Labyrinth.
I believe it.
Yeah, but we've got, it happens like one time it happens because Jareth is physically pushing time forward because Sarah's like, this isn't hard at all. And he's like, well, really? And he pushes the clock forward. He's an asshole. He's got to deal with that. But a couple of times she's like dealing with some like mystical problem. She ends up in like it kind of, you have this overlap of like this weird time distortion plot and also like the Lotus Eater, like the paradise thing where she's in like the dance with Jareth and stuff, and everything's all like whimsical and magical and stuff, and she's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And time has jumped a lot, and she's like, are you kidding me? So it keeps happening to her, which makes sense because he's a goblin. It's a fae trick. Like, you see this in like stories of the Wild Hunt all the time. Like, you dig into any sort of like fairy lore, and it is like pretty common to find humans ended up in the fairy realm and tons of time has passed, or like, this is just something that, like, there was like an old, like a Celtic lore one of a king. Actually, I have it written down. Let me get my notes real quick. King Hurla of the Britons attends the wedding of a friend among the dwarves, and after a 3-day banquet, he returns home to find his land has been ruled by Saxons for over 200 years.
Yeah.
He had spent 300 years, or like the dwarves, like his 3 days at the Dwarven Kingdom was 300 years in his world. Wild.
That's insane.
So that's like, this is like a classic like fairy thing. So yeah, makes sense for it to be in Labyrinth.
I guess this would be in the same vein as like Doctor Who counts as this, so this would count as well. In OnePiece.
Proceed.
I know Johnny already told you about Odin's story.
Yes.
So you know this part.
Yep.
That maybe don't know specifically, but
it's fine. Spoil away. I'm okay.
So there is Odin's wife, right?
Okay.
She got the power of, I don't remember what the fruit is called, but for this I'll call it the time fruit.
Okay.
What it does is allowed her to jump 20 years into the future at a time. 20 years at a time, right? And so she continued to do that throughout like fucking hundreds of years. Just like every time she had to get into like a spat, just kind of jump. When she met Odin, you know, she stayed. She had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sent all of Odin's samurai and their son 20 years in the future. Like, this is where I stay because I met Odin. So she sends them into the future. And now they have to deal with 20 years in the future.
Oh my God.
And everything is different in Wano.
Yeah.
And so like they have to go on the run. And it's like, again, great plot point.
Mm-hmm.
Not really a throwaway because it's huge, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured I'd just like bring that up because like, yeah, if the Doc Dude counts as that, so does that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like when you're dealing with like actual time travel.
Yeah, time travel is a little different than time distortion.
Yes, because I wouldn't say that the Lotus Hotel is sending them. They're not time traveling necessarily.
No. But they could. It's magic. Magic bullshit is always
okay. It's like with
time
that,
travel.
It's like what that Patience character does in Adventure Time, where she seals herself into the ice thing and she just waits thousands of years.
Patient Saint Pym.
Patient Saint Pym, yeah, the ice elemental. She's like waits thousands of years.
She's like, I waited 1,000 years and you guys are still fucking pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you still don't want to hang out with me. Like,
bullshit.
no, because you think you have a shitty personality, Patience.
You're kind of a
But
dick.
she is very patient, so you know, roll me back. So that would be kind of the same thing.
But is it patient if it like?
Did it happen fast for her? She was just like hanging out on a boat.
I'd imagine it'd be fast, right? Who knows how like? Who knows how cryogenic freezing actually works? But every time it's used, it always seems like it's
instantaneous,
fucking instant for most people.
Yeah. So would you count that? Okay. So in Avatar, the James Cameron movie, here you go, Davis. I'm giving you a present. Oh, man, they put him to sleep, right, and then they send him to Pandora.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Sleeping just happens.
Yeah, but like...
It's not like I'm sitting there with my eyes closed for 8 hours.
No, but I meant like, if it's a whole like time, would we consider that kind of... It's not a time distortion thing, but it feels like no time has passed and you wake up and tons of time has passed.
Well, if it's like, it feels like no time has passed in the Lotus Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Now tons of time has passed in the Lotus Hotel. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe...
Wait, did I just suggest that sleep is a time distortion?
Yeah.
Oh no, my life is in shambles.
I thought you were about to bring up Aang when you said Avatar. I can't believe you brought up James Cameron Avatar.
I gave you a present!
I appreciate it. I do. Believe me. But I cannot believe after we talked about somebody freezing themselves for thousands of years, you didn't bring up the Avatar that somebody froze themselves for 100 years.
No, this is true. So in Avengers Endgame,
yep,
the quantum realm.
Okay.
We have this in the quantum realm. I would say they literally use it because it would
Hank
Pym has been like, oh, you were trapped for 5 years. He's like, it was 5 hours.
It was an hour.
It was just an hour for him, and so that does it too. And it would feel like, I mean, that one's fascinating of how it's used. God, I love that scene where he rings the doorbell and you have the moment of hope for the first time. The music is swelling. And it's like, what? I love that movie so much.
It's a very good. I just like
movie.
Paul Rudd is that character.
Paul Rudd is so good. No, it's so good. Here's the thing, though. I just like time distortion plots, I think.
Time distortion plots are always super fun if done well. Which a lot of the times they actually are. It's one of those tropes where I get and then I'm never like, ugh, right?
Yeah, rarely.
And rarely does it feel bad.
Mm-hmm. I got one that feels bad to me, actually. Kingdom Hearts. I know, riled, right? This is a fucking roller coaster for me in this game. We have such a mixed relationship. Mm-hmm. Kingdom Hearts 4 drops tomorrow. Are you getting it? Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I still buy it. There you go. I still buy it. Yeah. No. So in Fragmentary Passage, Aqua ends up, at the end of Kingdom Hearts, not 358 Days, Birth by Sleep, she ends up in the Realm of Darkness. And Fragmentary Passage is where we see her, what she's been going through while there. She's there for like years and years and years. And then it's right at the end, right before they go save her, she falls into this pool of darkness, and then she becomes Dark Aqua. And that makes no sense in the like building of how characters fall to darkness. They fall to darkness because of like their own
years of buildup.
Yeah, there's like years of, or like their own like falterings of like their heart, their weaknesses, their greed, their insecurities. A lot of the times
people fall to darkness for those reasons, or just like they lose hope, especially in
hope.
Kingdom Hearts.
And Aqua
hope is a very big thing.
Hope's a huge thing. And it was wild because like you expected, oh, she's been there so long, she lost hope. No, she lost a battle and got pushed into a pool of darkness, and that's what consumed her. Like it was. And then we do this with Yensid does this in Dream Drop Distance. He mentions that he created a little like pocket dimension for like for Axel and Kairi to train to be Keyblade Masters. And it's like, and that I hate because I feel like that deprives.
Hyperbolic Time Chamber in fucking Dragon Ball Z also is.
Yeah.
Like, long time in there, but like no time passes out, and so that's why it's used as training ground.
Yeah, it sucks. I feel like when it's used in that way, I think it's done poorly because I think it deprives the audience of character development. Unless we get to actually be there with the characters and see what they go through.
A lot of times in Dragon Ball it is.
Dragon Ball it is. I think in Kingdom Hearts it's not. We get like one cutscene with God damn it, with Axel and Kairi, and she's like, it's ice cream to celebrate, we've trained so hard, and Axel has this moment where he sees her and she looks like Xion. He's like, why the fuck am I crying?
What the fuck is this?
Listen, it's a crazy. Don't get me wrong, I cried. I fucking cried still. But it would have been way more enjoyable to see these characters actually training.
See it not on the 240p 3DS screen.
Yeah. Well, that one was actually in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh, okay.
So I did see on the PS4. But yeah, it's when it's used like that. Like, for example, I would have actually liked to get something of what it was like for Nico and Bianca in the Lotus Hotel. Like, how did they stay together? Like, what was that? Because I just projected all that stuff earlier in the episode, but like, what was that like for them? What does that mean? We saw what it did to like Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. Like, how did they? I guess we don't have to see that. It doesn't mean a lot for their story, but it is like.
Yeah, I think
it could be good and bad.
If he writes it today, I'd imagine it'd look a lot like something. Nico trying to go off and play a game as well. Bianca trying to make sure he eats his veggies.
Yeah, Bianca's constantly like, where are you, Nico? Like, I couldn't find you. Where were you?
I was worried about you.
Fun. I was worried about you. Like, more about like.
Worried. This is
we're having fun, and Bianca's like, I don't know, something feels wrong. Just please stay with me.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like, oftentimes, I think when we see this like trope used, it is used really well. But sometimes I feel like it can be
when it's used off camera, it sucks ass.
When it's used off camera, it sucks. And I would say, like, I don't think it sucks for Nico and Bianca. I still think what it was serving was just to get these characters into the story. Yeah. So it wasn't quite, like, depriving us of character development, because they developed the moment we start meeting them.
It looks like the thing that Rick has decided is a truth about Hades is he doesn't break his word.
No.
Death does, or I guess maybe death, but, like, the...
Death doesn't break its word.
It doesn't change. It does not. It is
doesn't
a
go
constant.
back on its promises.
Yeah. So I'd imagine that's probably how he's like, I want these kids. Luckily, I've introduced a time distortion.
I have created a time distortion.
I want Hades to have kids, but luckily I've already done something. So let's say it's been around for God knows how long, even though casinos weren't allowed back then. Anyway.
I mean, no, Vegas had casinos in the 40s.
Well... it had casinos, but gambling wasn't a thing. It wasn't legal until like the 60s or something like that.
Okay, but like...
The only reason I know that is because my manager at Amazon actually said, like, he does this This Day in History thing every now and again.
Okay.
And it's actually yesterday's thing, or maybe it was like last week's, but it's like, it was legalized in Nevada in 1963 or something like that.
Interesting. I mean, they still would have hotels and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, or because it's interesting, because like, was the Lotus... Because I keep saying Lotus Casino, and I think that's
Lotus
the movie.
Hotel.
It's the Lotus Hotel.
The movie is a casino, and the
which makes
thing it's a
sense
hotel.
if you have these kids and they're in Vegas and they're older teenagers. Let them go have fun.
I'd love to gamble.
Let them go have fun in a casino. Like, I like that. We don't talk about the movie. What are we doing? Hold on.
We don't talk about the movie, but that's a good scene.
That's a good scene, though. With poker
it's a
face
fun
playing.
Scene.
With poker face
fun
playing.
Scene, yeah.
So, I wonder if... Was it in Vegas already, or was it somewhere in, like, Italy... And it moved to Vegas.
I don't imagine. Maybe. I don't know. It's so hard with this whole Western civilization.
I know, right?
Because he straight up went back on it.
I really.
I appreciate that he went back on it. It added more, right? It expanded his world that he could play in.
Yes.
The fact that he went back on it kind of sucks, because now you're like, well, what does it mean? What's happening?
What does it mean? Yeah. Fucking wasn't 1867. Like, I don't know who the fuck you're saying that. I really hope.
Anyway.
I would love... I want Seaweed Brain to follow through on their threat to have a whole episode about this, where everyone gets to come on and debate where they think it came from. Erica Carter, please. We must have it. Let chaos reign. So, I'm gonna be honest, gang. That's all I have for us today.
I've already brought up the 2 cults that I wanted to.
Oh yeah, DJ. Yeah, DJ thinks it's a cult.
I do.
I'm gonna look up the definition of cult right now.
Yeah, but those are the 2 that I'm like, yeah, that's a cult.
Okay. So this is why I don't think it's a cult. I'm going to read you the 3 definitions that come up.
Okay.
A system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. This is not the kind of cult you mean. This is like a religious cult. Like we talk about like Egypt.
The 2 cults
that
I brought
cult of Dionysus
were in fact religious cults.
Yeah. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister.
Again, religious.
And then a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing.
The flower.
See, I don't think the flowers, I don't think that thing is like, I guess the problem is we don't know enough about what the culture of the Lotus Eaters in the Odyssey on the island of...
Yeah. Because again, as you said, it was a passing thing, and sure, what they described was a food so good they forgot about their worries. That is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Because it's like, if they worshipped the flower, if this thing was it was like a drug. I feel like it's not a cult so much as like...
Well, here's the thing. Are heroin addicts cultists? Because they admire heroin so much they'll suck dick for heroin. You ever suck dick for heroin, Darren? Darren? Have you ever sucked dick for video games?
DJ,
no, you're not addicted to video games.
No, I would not. I would... I feel slightly uncomfortable comparing drug addiction to cult behavior. I'm going to put it out there right here. I understand what you're saying, because that's my thing. It's like, I don't think it's a cult because I think it's an addiction. I think these folks are addicted to the Lotus. I think that's circling back to like, we didn't spend a lot of time at the top talking about what it represents, and in the Odyssey, it represents so many things in the Odyssey, as we discussed in our episode.
Represent a distraction from home.
Yes, represent like distraction from ambition or comfort and the dangers of those things. Like that is what Odysseus is. The threats of monsters and death, yeah, but
sure,
the other
that happens. But the ones that do get him sidetracked truly are the ones that attack his mind specifically.
Yeah, comfort and the sirens, the things that will distract you from your goal. And so what makes the Lotus Eaters dangerous is that they pose the threat of forgetting your ambition, forgetting your goal, distracting. And this has been the most comfortable episode Hero has ever had because we're in here recording together rather than me recording and just talking to no one. It freaks my poor buddy out. He just cannot deal with it. He's a sleepy old man.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I don't want to go back to sleep. It's okay.
It's almost 11 o'clock.
Yeah. And so I just think that's why I'm like, we could definitely find versions of Lotus Eaters that are like cult. I just don't think, especially like the way it's used in the Ryan books and the way it's used in the Odyssey, I don't think it's necessarily a cult. But I definitely see where you're coming from. And I think that could be interesting, like, to dive into. Just because if we knew more about the cult, they do offer them the flower, the plant to eat, so they are spreading, but it's more like they think it's so great. If it's a drug, why won't you want some too? It'll make you seem stressed. You're hungry. Here, eat this food. It'll make your cares go away.
Yeah.
They aren't necessarily... I don't think it's malicious, though, not to say, like, everyone in a cult has malicious intent, though it can cause harm. But it's more like... I just don't think it's a cult.
No, that's right.
Hey, I win!
I just think it's a cult.
I don't win! But, yeah, I just think it's very interesting. Yeah, you drew the conclusion right. Anyway, we need to talk about... Jerba, the island. Jerba, yeah. It is the historian Polybius identified that island as being the island of the Lotus Eaters. I guess it's off the coast of Tessinia. And then Strabo also supported this. But also, Ithaca is not Ithaca, so...
Who knows? Who fucking knows?
Who's to say?
Yeah.
But that's just a fun thing, which is like, we don't know what the flower was, we don't know where the island was, gang, it's the Odyssey. Like, we don't know anything about what went down here. But it's cool to talk about.
Yeah. That's all I got.
That's all I got. Thank you all so much for listening.
This is a normal-sized episode. We got more out of this topic than we thought.
I know, yeah, definitely.
Mainly because we talked about other tropes and not the myth.
Hey, else, it's been a week, but we're here. We're excited to be able to record this. I definitely will peek behind the curtain. We're recording this 2 days before the episode goes up.
Yeah.
Not usually the timeline we like to be running on.
We enjoy having like at least a week out.
So, but we are rolling We are still here. We are looking forward to it.
Yep.
What did we miss? What are your favorite time distortions? What are your favorite...
Obviously not time loops, because we didn't talk about time loops.
Not time
Maybe we'll
bubbles.
talk about time loops in fucking the bonus episode.
Oh, that would be fun.
That'd
I'd
be
love to do it
enjoyable.
just a time loop thing.
That'd
Yeah.
be a good time.
Write it down. We'll put that on the spreadsheet.
Heck yeah.
But yeah. Thank you all so much for listening. DJ already shilled the Patreon, but I'm going to do it one more time right at the end because our second patron-voted bonus episode is up at Bunker 9. We turned Annabeth Chase into a D&D character because apparently our patrons really liked it when we did that to Percy like last year, so...
We also made Percy's because we didn't like our last one.
No, we've grown as people and as creators, so you can definitely, for $5 a month, get access to that episode and everything in our backlog, including the Twisted Tale episode, the Hercules one DJ mentioned earlier.
I'm very proud of those Twisted Tale episodes.
Those are super fun.
It's me rambling on a lot, and I'm not great at expressing ideas. I very much enjoyed those.
Really good job pitching the Patreon, DJ. I have lots of push. So y'all can listen to that at patreon.com/podcast of Poseidon. There's also a link in the show notes. Trust me, we make it easy for you.
Yes.
But we will be back on April 12th to talk about Aphrodite, the love goddess of I've Got Big Feelings, and I hear our guest does too.
Heck yeah.
So, again, thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, don't be like Zeus.
Don't be like Zeus.
Podcast of Poseidon is created and hosted by Darien and DJ Smartt. It's edited by Darien Smartt. The show is produced by Darien and DJ Smartt, as well as
Tim O'Connor, the Crystal Con Man, Dionysus the Drunk. Our music is Athens Festival by Martin Hain, and our cover art is by Audrey Miller. You can find her on Instagram at bombshell.nutshellart.
Like the show? Ready for more? Support Podcast of Poseidon on Patreon. Just $1 gets you exclusive bonus content. Find out more at patreon.com/podcast of Poseidon.
Can't spare the drachmas? You can support the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or by sharing us with your friends. Find all of our episodes and episode transcripts at podcastofposeidon.com.
Thanks for listening.